The message arrived at 2:17 in the morning. No caller ID. No name. No photograph. Just 11 seconds of distorted audio. At first, the person who received it thought it was a mistake. Then the voice spoke. Stop looking for the truth. A pause. Then breathing. Heavy breathing. Almost as though whoever was speaking was afraid someone was standing behind him. Then came the sentence that changed everything. Because the truth is already looking for you. The recording ended. For 3 months, nobody had heard anything from Du Qiang. Not his family. Not his friends. Not the people who had been desperately trying to understand what had happened. And certainly not the public. He had disappeared behind prison walls, becoming nothing more than a name whispered whenever the mysterious Yu Menglong case surfaced again. But that night, something changed. Because the message wasn't supposed to exist. And according to the person who eventually leaked it, Du Qiang had never intended for anyone outside the prison to hear it. The terrifying question was simple. Who was it actually meant for? The story began 3 months earlier. A sealed envelope had been delivered to a detention facility. There was no recognizable sender. No return address. No explanation. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Only one sentence had been written on it. You promised you would stay silent. Du Qiang reportedly stared at those words for several minutes. Then he laughed. Not because they were funny. Because he finally understood. Someone was afraid. And whoever had sent that message believed Du Qiang knew something powerful enough to destroy them. But Du Qiang had already learned something during his time behind bars. Silence did not protect people forever. Sometimes silence only gave secrets time to grow. That night, he allegedly asked for a piece of paper. He began writing. Not a confession. Not an apology. Not an explanation. A warning. The first line was strange. Everyone keeps asking what happened to him. The second line was even stranger. They are asking the wrong question. Then came a third. The question is not what happened. The question is who knew it would happen. That sentence would later become the center of the entire, because it suggested something nobody had considered. Maybe the mystery wasn't about one night. Maybe it was about everything that happened before that night. The meetings. The phone calls. The unexplained silences. The sudden changes in behavior. The people who appeared at exactly the wrong moment. And the people who disappeared at exactly the right moment. Du Qiang continued writing. But then something happened. He stopped. He looked toward the prison corridor. Someone was standing outside his cell. The figure did not speak. It simply watched. Du Qiang folded the paper. The figure walked away. And that was the moment Du Qiang realized he could no longer trust the walls around him. 3 months later, the 11-second recording appeared. Nobody knew who leaked it. Nobody knew where it came from. And nobody could explain why only 11 seconds had survived. The original recording was supposedly much longer. But whoever released it had removed everything except the final warning. That immediately created another mystery. What was deleted? Because if the final 11 seconds were powerful enough to cause panic, what could have been contained in the missing minutes? People began searching. Screenshots appeared. Anonymous accounts started posting theories. One claimed Du Qiang had left behind a second message. Another claimed there was a hidden letter. A third insisted that the recording contained the name of someone who had never been publicly connected to the case. Then, at 3:04 a.m., a new account appeared. It had no profile picture. No followers. No following list. Its username was simply, The Last Witness. The account posted one sentence. You heard 11 seconds. I heard 47 minutes. The internet exploded. The account disappeared 6 minutes later. But screenshots had already spread. People began asking the same question. Who had 47 minutes of Du Qiang's message? And why would someone risk leaking even 11 seconds? Then another post appeared from a different anonymous account. It contained 4 words. The message wasn't finished. That was when the fictional investigation took its darkest turn. Because according to the anonymous source, Du Qiang had not recorded the message voluntarily. He had been instructed to make it. The reason? Someone wanted him to repeat a particular story. A story that would point investigators in one direction. A story that would make another person look guilty. A story that would keep attention away from something else. Something buried deeper. Something Du Qiang allegedly discovered only after entering prison. The source claimed that Du Qiang eventually realized he had been used. And that realization terrified him. He had believed the prison would be the end of the story. Instead, it became the beginning. During his first weeks inside, Du Qiang reportedly received no unusual visitors. Then, one afternoon, a man arrived. No name was publicly revealed. No explanation was given. The meeting lasted only 12 minutes. When Du Qiang returned to his cell, he was visibly shaken. Another prisoner later claimed he heard Du Qiang repeating the same phrase over and over. I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. But eventually the sentence changed. I should have known. That distinction mattered. Because knowing something and realizing you should have known it are two very different forms of fear. Weeks passed. Du Qiang became increasingly withdrawn. He stopped discussing the case. Stopped asking questions. Stopped speaking about the people connected to it. But he started writing. Page after page. Names. Times. Fragments of conversations. Numbers. Locations. And one recurring symbol. A small black circle. Nobody knew what it meant. Until one night, a prison employee allegedly discovered a page that had been left behind. At the top were 5 words. This is not about you. Underneath was another sentence. This is about what they feared he knew. The page vanished. Nobody could prove it had ever existed. But the rumor refused to die. Then came the photograph. A grainy image supposedly showing Yu Menglong standing beside an unidentified person. The photograph was blurry. The location was unclear. The date was unknown. But Du Qiang had allegedly circled the unidentified figure in one of his notes. Beside the circle, he had written, "Not who you think." That sentence became the obsession of everyone following the fictional mystery. Who was the person? Why had Du Qiang identified them? And why did the photograph seem to matter so much? One theory claimed the person was connected to an old disagreement. Another claimed the person was merely an innocent bystander. A third theory suggested something much darker. The person wasn't important because of who they were. They were important because of what they witnessed. Then came the second message. Unlike the first, this one was not audio. It was text. 4 paragraphs. No signature. No explanation. The first paragraph said, "If you are reading this, then someone has already broken the promise." The second said, "They told me nobody would ever hear my side." The third was only one sentence. They were wrong. The fourth contained something even more chilling. Look at the silence between the events. That sentence confused everyone. What did it mean? Then someone noticed something. The biggest gaps in the fictional timeline were not random. Every time something important happened, there seemed to be a period of silence immediately afterward. A phone stopped ringing. A person stopped speaking. A photograph disappeared. A meeting was never explained. A witness suddenly changed their story. And each silence appeared to surround the same central mystery. Yu Menglong. Theories multiplied. Some were ridiculous. Some were impossible. Some were frighteningly plausible within the fictional world. But one theory kept returning. The theory of the missing conversation. According to it, Du Qiang had once spoken privately with someone who knew something about you. The conversation supposedly lasted less than 20 minutes. But afterward, Du Qiang's behavior changed completely. He began asking questions. Not about the incident itself. About the people surrounding it. Who had contacted whom? Who arrived first? Who left first? Who knew? Who didn't know? And most importantly, who was pretending not to know? That question became the key. Because sometimes the most suspicious person isn't the one who knows everything. It's the person who knows too little about something they should understand. 3 months into Du Qiang's imprisonment, another envelope arrived. This time, there was no sentence. Only a photograph. On the back were 4 numbers. 17, 04, 09, 31. Du Qiang stared at them. He understood immediately. They weren't dates. They were page numbers. Pages from a notebook he believed had been destroyed. But the notebook had survived. Someone had it. And someone was using it to communicate with him. That meant there was another person outside the prison who knew what Du Qiang knew. And that person was afraid. Very afraid. That night, Du Qiang finally made the recording. The 47-minute recording. He began quietly. If you're hearing this, I failed. There was a long silence. Then, I thought keeping quiet would protect people. Another pause. But silence protected the wrong people. He began describing everything he remembered. Not dramatic accusations. Not wild claims. Just details. A conversation. A hallway. A phone. A message. A strange instruction. A person who appeared unexpectedly. And one sentence that he said he could never forget. Don't ask what happened to you. Ask why everyone became afraid afterward. Then the recording became emotional. Du Qiang's breathing changed. His voice dropped. He said, "There is a name I was told never to mention." Silence. Then, if I say it, they will know I broke the agreement. Another pause. But if I don't say it, they win. The recording continued. But that part never appeared online. Only 11 seconds survived. Why? That became the biggest mystery. Some believed the rest of the recording had been deliberately erased. Others believed someone had stolen the original. A third theory suggested Du Qiang himself had arranged for only 11 seconds to be released. Because perhaps he didn't want the public to know everything. Perhaps he wanted them to know just enough to start asking questions. Maybe the 11 seconds weren't the message. Maybe they were bait. A signal. A door. An invitation. Then came the final twist. Someone found an old handwritten note. It contained the same phrase. The truth is already looking for you. But the handwriting wasn't Du Qiang's. It belonged to someone else. Someone who had allegedly disappeared from the story long before Du Qiang entered prison. That changed everything. Because if the phrase existed before Du Qiang's message, then Du Qiang hadn't created it. He had repeated it. Which meant someone had spoken those words to him. Someone had warned him. And perhaps someone had been warning others too. At 4:11 a.m., the anonymous account returned. This time, it posted a single image. A photograph of a closed door. Nothing else. Beneath it were 6 words. He was never supposed to open it. The image remained online for 23 minutes. Then it disappeared. But someone had already enhanced the photograph. Behind the door was a reflection. A person. Standing several feet away. The face could not be seen. But in the person's hand was something unmistakable. A notebook. The same notebook described in Du Qiang's prison records. And suddenly, the entire mystery took another turn. Maybe the notebook wasn't destroyed. Maybe it had been deliberately hidden. Maybe the information inside it was the reason people were so desperate to control the story. Weeks later, another recording surfaced. This one was only 6 seconds. A man's voice whispered, "Don't trust the first story." Then the recording ended. That sentence spread. Faster than anything before it. Because everyone suddenly realized something. They had been listening to stories. Not evidence. Not proof. Stories. And stories can be controlled. A story can make someone look guilty. A story can make someone look innocent. A story can make people stop asking questions. And if someone controls the first story people hear, they may control what everyone believes afterward. Investigation eventually uncovered a disturbing pattern. Every time someone tried to reveal something new, the information arrived incomplete. A missing page. A deleted message. A blurred photograph. A cut recording. A witness who refused to speak. It was as if the truth itself had been deliberately fragmented. And perhaps that was the point. Because a complete truth can be examined.